Today is Monday, July 13th, 2020, and it's been a little bit since I've given you a tour of my garden. I think the last one I did was at the end of May, and so much has happened since the last time I've showed you, so I figure I'd do another garden tour. There's been lots of successes, some failures. I'm learning so much right now. This is my first year with my own gardening space. If you're joining me for the first time, hello, my name is Jaclyn. I live in Brooklyn, New York City, and I have a really small city garden that I use to grow my own vegetables and flowers. This is my first year with my own gardening space. I grew up in a gardening environment. My parents are really great at gardening, so I have a lot of like base knowledge to work from, but this is the first time actually doing it on my own and like paying more attention to the space that I am using. Oh, there's a bee that really wants to say hi. So I'm learning so much as it's a new space and figuring out like what's working and what's not and what spaces kind of do best for what. So yeah, it's been a real adventure. Of course with coronavirus, it's just been amazing to have this space in general to give me something to do during the lockdown. Not that I ever have a shortage of things to do, but just a place that I can get outside and still be socially distanced. It's been amazing. So without further ado, let's take a look at the garden for July 2020. Okay, I'm gonna start off with one of the quote-unquote failures, I guess I should say. Although I'm always harvesting knowledge, I'm not too upset about it, but this whole space right here is just not doing very well because it's so shaded by this really big mulberry tree that's right here, and it's such a shame because this would be full sun if the tree wasn't there. As you can see, it's got so much sun where it's not shading the tree, so it's kind of a bummer, but you know, got to work with the space that you have, and who knows, maybe someday I'll chop this tree down. It's not very useful, and to be honest, it's always dropping the mulberries into here and like creating a really humid environment that's trapping moisture. It's almost acting like a mulch, which is even worse for the space because there's not enough sun to thoroughly heat it. So I have planted a random cosmo right here, which is actually flowering, surprisingly enough, even though cosmos are a full sun plant, and then like a pollinator dahlia right here, and then back there is a stalk, but the flower stalk, but I don't know if it's really gonna grow. I'm kind of just like testing the waters now that I know what the issues are with this side of the gardening bed. I have 3 main gardening beds and this is the front one. On the left here I have my garlic. I'll show you, I harvested a few. They are teeny or even non-existent in some cases. I can't really remember the exact varieties that I had, but the hardneck was the only one that came up. The soft neck didn't even come up at all. It's gonna be time to harvest all of it pretty soon. I kind of just pulled one to see what was happening, but as soon as about 3/4 of the leaf tops yellow, that's how you know when to pull it for zone 7, which is what I am. I'm zone 7B. So that's kind of a shame because garlic is one of my most used crops, or would have been, but I'll know better for next year about putting it in a better sunny position or doing something about this tree, which honestly no one really cares about or uses or anything except, well, maybe wildlife, but that's another thing entirely. Next we have the beets. This was kind of the first sign that something was really going wrong in this bed. I think I've mentioned this in previous videos about the beets, but they were kind of like browning and then curling on the edges and then like dying completely. And what I've discovered with some Googling is I'm pretty sure I have leaf miners. Leaf miners are a specific kind of pest that get into the leaves and then start creating these little holes where they're eating all the goodness between the leaves and then spreading throughout the leaf. And the only way you can really treat it is by plucking it off and throwing it away in your compost heap or wherever you can, or not, actually no, not your compost heap. Sorry, you don't want to put it in your compost heap because then they will just spread to the soil of your compost. So you just want to burn it or get rid of it altogether. So I've kind of discovered, oh, what do we have here, our little friend? What are you doing there? There. Looks like a lightning bug. Yeah, so I have leaf miners on pretty much all of the plants. The only ones that really seem to be doing okay are the one in the back, which I have a feeling might be because this one gets the most sun whenever the sun starts kind of creeping in. It's still early in the morning, it's like 8:30 right now. So, not early, but it's earlier in the day, so it's not getting the sun yet. But I have a feeling that this one is the only one that's gonna survive. If it even produces beets, I'd be surprised. Like, I've pulled out a few, I've multi-sown them according to the Charles Dowding method, and you can see this is the Cylindra variety, and nada. It's just like completely eaten the foliage, and then it spreads to root damage. And again, because after Googling so much trying to figure out what was going on with this bed, just the combination of a lack of sunlight and then beets kind of like more space around their roots and aeration, I think really just kind of did this particular crop in. So if I want to grow beets in the future, I'll definitely need to move these to a sunny spot and also give them plenty of kind of space for airflow to get around their roots. Next up, we have the onions. Most of the ones that I did the second planting of have just died. Again, I think it's because there's not enough sun over here for them. But the ones that I started as seedlings indoors, those are doing fine. I haven't pulled any up yet to see, but the stalks look nice and thick. This is a Florence red onion. This is a yellow of Parma onion. So we've got some thick trunks right here, so I'm hoping that those will produce some onions. I have 3 different varieties, like I mentioned, the red of Florence onion, yellow of Parma, and a red globe onion in the back over there. This is a stalk flower. It produces a single stem with lots of frilly flowers on it. They're really beautiful. Again, once I started noticing how much this area was kind of suffering and the other onions just kind of dampened off or died off or, you know, whatever, just they didn't thrive. I just put something else here because I had so many extra seedling flowers, lots that I gave away to friends and friends of friends, but so many extra flowers. So I'm just kind of testing. This is kind of more of an experimental space now with all these other things, but I do have some plans for it, which you'll hear about in just a minute. Next up, we have the carrots. I have not pulled any of these, so I don't know. It's like this is starting to get onto the edge of where the sun problems are happening, so they may be working out, they may not. I think it's interesting how some of the foliage is turning red. They are a purple carrot variety, and then it's producing like the flowers and stuff like that. This bee, I swear, I must have some scent on me that they really like. Anyway, so I have no clue how these are doing, and I dare not pull one up just yet, although maybe I should, just to see what's kind of happening in there. This is a new structure in my garden. This is 2 trellises that I've angled up against one another to put my green beans in, and I'm pretty sure I had this trellis in my last video, but I just sowed the beans. So we have a Blue Lake variety, Kentucky Wonder, and pinto beans here, and I just sowed them at the very end of May, and they're already up at the top of the trellis. They grow really fast, so if you're wanting a really easy crop and you have a vertical space for them to grow on, like a pole or a trellis or something like that, they grow insanely fast. So you could definitely plant another round or start some fresh seeds of green beans and get a harvest, I would think. But these leaves are so interesting. They're like quite like prickly almost. I wouldn't say they're velvety because they're not soft. They like catch you. If they're really, it's such a strange texture, but yeah, they're cool. Previously right here, I had a bunch of lettuce crops, I think. what did I pull out from right here? I had something right here. I know I had lettuce all right here, and I've pulled out a lot of it because most of it went to seed. But in its place, I've sown some zinnias. And again, this is really on that edge of where the tree shades it. So I don't really know how the zinnias are going to do there, just because they are definitely a full sun crop, almost tropical in their nature. So they need a lot of sunlight, and I don't know if they're going to do well over there. And I may end up planting some seedlings over there in that pot. I've been doing some work today, so it's kind of messy out here, but I'm in that kind of tray right there where I'm pointing. I may plant them there because I think they will do better over there than they probably will do over here. But you know, it was just a few, so they need quite a bit of spacing, so we'll see how they do. Even with that spacing, might be too close together. And then that brings me to my former lettuce bed, which is still sort of my current lettuce bed. I've pulled out the majority of them. I had like a lot of arugula, endive, mustard greens, but they all mostly went to seed, except for the Merveille de Quatreçon. I'm not probably pronouncing that right, but I think this one's probably slow to bolt. It was definitely slower to grow, and I kind of wrote it off at first because of that. I was like, oh, I'm not going to grow that again next year, and it was kind of difficult to grow from seed. There's also a little gem lettuce right here, but I think what I'm learning is that this one may be slower to start, but it's also slower to bolt. So like all of the mustard greens have bolted. I've left a couple in here just for the bees because you can frequently see them on the flowers and they really love it. So I've just left some for them. But yeah, the lettuce is slower to bolt than the others, but I've resown some arugula seeds right here because that was by far my favorite. Oh my gosh, they were so good. And the mustard greens. The mustard greens are incredible. I harvested so much. I was keeping a tally there for a while, and then I just kind of lost track. But with, I don't know, like maybe there were 10 plants in here total, maybe not even that many, something around that, from like here to here, and I was up to my ears in lettuce. I couldn't even finish it. I had to have a friend come over and pick some to take home with him because I could not keep up with eating it. So I've learned that I don't really need as much lettuce as I have grown, because like even this has been here for a while and I haven't picked this for a while. Maybe I'll pick some for my lunch today. But yeah, I just don't go through that much lettuce. And this brings me to my next idea. So the lettuce, as you can see, it bolts fairly quickly right here because this is more of a sunny area. Once the sun starts getting higher in the sky, this is an area where it will go. Lettuce doesn't need nearly as much sunlight as a lot of my other crops do, so I'm thinking I'm going to move the lettuce next year, or maybe once I harvest the garlic, so this as a lettuce and greens bed in the back where it doesn't get nearly as much sunlight. And I think that will be a much better placement for this crop because it doesn't need that sort of light. So I'm really excited about that change. I think it's going to do much better over there, and then I can move these other things that need the light over into the middle of this front bed where they'll get more sunlight. This lettuce is so pretty though. It's like this beautiful green with these tinges of red on the edges, and this little gem. It's just like these really big fat leaves of lime green goodness. I can't wait for all this arugula to come out, but again, I may end up just like ripping it all out and then resowing and seeding everything over there. It grows so fast, so I'm really not concerned. Lettuce is another thing you could easily just keep resowing and resowing and resowing. Then on the right side of the trellis, we have cucumber plants. I have two. The Boston pickling, which is a pickling variety of cucumber, is the one that's really shot up here. And then I have a slicing cucumber, which is the Bayet Alpha from Baker Creek Seeds. It's not growing as fast. I don't know if it's just a variety thing or if these tomatoes are just like taking over all of the sunlight and shading it, but the one in the back seems to be doing okay. So I don't know, it's still growing. I think it might just be a slower variety, and I'm not concerned. It's just when you're comparing it to the one right next to it, who knows. But yeah, and then the pickling cucumber has flowers on it already. Oh, and so does the Bea Alpha, my slicing cucumber. It also does. These leaves are also a trip. They are, again, like the green beans, so fuzzy. So fuzzy. This area is completely transformed. You may recall from the last episode that this was all poppies, and oh my gosh, did those poppies love it here. These were all Icelandic poppies. They were beautiful. One of, if not my favorite flower that I grew so far this year. It was gorgeous. I'll be sure to be inserting some footage right now of them because I know I took some. The first one was like just about to bloom but hadn't yet in my last video, and then all through June they just like exploded into growth. It was fantastic. I absolutely love them. Would definitely grow them again. But now they're done. They're finished for the season, and I've replaced them with my dahlias. So I have 4 dahlia plants right here. In the front I have Cafe au Lait, which of course is like the popular one. They're these beautiful blush dinner plate size blooms. Right here I have the Bistro variety, which is like a light lavender purple. Sweet Natalie, another kind of blush pink variety, and then Yvonne, which is kind of an apricot color. And I think they're gonna do really well here because this area of my garden is the part that does the best by far. It gets the most sun in this corner, this front corner right here, and anything I put here with requiring full sun is just doing amazing. So I think those are also gonna do really well. They've shot up in the past few days, especially that Cafe au Lait. It's doing amazing. And then in front right here I have a single, like a pollinator style dahlia, the ones that are like the single petal. These are the like multiple ruffled petals right here. This one I think is definitely gonna be the biggest one. It might be the only dinner plate size one I have. And then these are all just medium size dahlias right here, which may explain why this is so big already. I did originally have these planted closer, and when I pulled out all the poppies it left a lot more space, so I'm hoping it works out. But I've taken a shovel and kind of scooted these 2 over. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it doesn't send the plant into shock. I staked them all today and tied them to the stakes to keep them secure. But yeah, I'm hoping that it doesn't shock them too much. I've kind of re-watered them into their new spot with some food, some plant food, organic feeder. So hopefully that will kind of help them a little bit transplant. And like I said, I only scooted them so they're with the same soil that they were before. So hopefully hopefully they'll barely notice, but we'll see. I've also scattered some organic slug pellets down around the base of them because, as you can see, slugs are probably the main pest I come across in my garden, and usually only baby ones. I haven't really seen any like mama slugs hanging around, but they definitely ate a lot of my lettuce before I figured out what was going on with them. So I bought some organic slug pellets, and that really does the trick. They're also kid and pet safe, animal safe, you know. Rats and squirrels will eat them probably and feel nothing. So that's my front dahlia patch, and there are more, like I said, single dahlia. And then this one right here in the front is called Boom Boom Yellow. It's like a really bright yellow variety in the front, which I think will attract the bees, which wasn't why I put it there necessarily, but I think it will be even more attractive to the bees, which really are not having any trouble finding their way to these tomatoes. Oh my gosh, there are just so many. The plants are absolutely covered in tomatoes. And can you believe it? When I think the last time I showed you, they had barely crossed this bottom bar threshold right here, and now they're at the top. This trellis that Andrew built for me is 8 feet in the front and 7 feet in the back. And I know that these plants, these tomatoes, can get to be up to 11 or 12 feet tall. So I'm not sure what's really going to happen once they get to the top. I've just tied them in securely this morning for an hour today because they really needed it. Yeah, so I don't really know what's going to happen when they get to the top. I suppose they're going to keep growing and it might end up snapping the branch, which would kind of be a shame, but we'll see. But yeah, these tomatoes are just doing amazing right here. And if there was a crop that would be doing really well, I'm really glad it's the tomatoes, because tomatoes and chili peppers are by far my favorite fruit slash vegetable. The varieties that I've chosen, I also love. I've already eaten a few of the Sun Golds and a few of the Sweet Millions, which is the one on the corner right there. Both of them are absolutely delicious. Would definitely recommend. Equal in sweetness in my opinion. Again, that was the Sun Gold on the left here, and then Sweet Million on the right. Let's see if there's one that's ready for picking. That one looks, oh, probably needs another day actually. Close though. But this one's red, and then these ones over here produce these kind of orange ones. Oh, here's one. Oh, where'd you go? This one looks more like a Sweet Million, so I'm thinking that these branches have kind of like crossed over here. This one though, for sure, Sun Gold. Got some ready right here. Oh, they just look so juicy and wonderful. I companion planted with marigold on the bottom to help keep away pests as well. And here in the front spilling out, I have my cornflounder poppies. I probably bought every poppy imaginable and I love it. They're one of my favorite flowers. I didn't plan for this. Normally they grow upright. It might be because they're trying to reach for the sun. I don't really know, but they are leaning, spilling out of the bed. But really, that's kind of a plus for me because poppies self-seed like everywhere if you don't control it. So like these pods on the end here, they kind of burst open and release all of these poppy seeds. So that's why they're always planted on like the sides of highways, because they self-seed everywhere. So it's kind of lucky for me that they're spilling out over the side of the bed, because then they're not going to self-seed into the garden, which is a real plus. And then over here we have some more cosmos. The buds are opening up, getting ready to bloom. I think this one might be one of the rose bonbon ones. I'm really excited about that one. And then they're kind of done now. I think a few might still be left on here, but I had some amazing gray poppies from Floret, and oh my gosh, they were just gorgeous. I loved them. Just loved them. In the back, I have more cherry tomato plants. So there are 4 in the front and then 2 against this back wall. These 2 are slicers. These 4 are cherry tomatoes. And then I already told you that was Sweet Million on the front corner, Sun Gold on the back over here. And then on the back side, we have Rosella, which produces these kind of smoky brown chocolatey kind of colors. And these ones are ready for picking. These are the first ones that I'm harvesting for the season. I'm really excited to try these. Look at this color. I wonder if I actually should leave them on a little bit longer. Maybe they should all be this kind of darker color and that's too light. I'm gonna leave that one on so I can see for later. So pretty. Over here, these are technically cherry tomatoes, but you can see they're a little bit bigger than your average cherry tomato. They're kind of in the middle. This is Gardener's Delight. Gardener's Delight is a pretty common tomato variety. You can get them in Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff like that. And I picked my very first 2 tomatoes for our Gardener's Delight. And you can see comparatively, they're just a little bit bigger than your average cherry tomatoes. So I had a bit of a snafu. You can see that these are staked right here now, or maybe it's such a tomato jungle in there, I'm not sure if you can. So all of the tomato plants that are alongside the main parts of the frame of my trellis are fine because I can tie them into the trellis along the frame. But these that I still use string to kind of string them up and tie string to the stakes in the ground. And then the string kind of went all the way up to the top of the trellis. That did not work for me. I got that idea from Homegrown Garden because she has had such success tying her tomatoes up in her polytunnel using just string. I don't know how she does it because my tomato plants are so heavy and like laden with fruit that the string is just not strong enough to hold up the tomatoes. They need stakes like dug into the ground. So unfortunately, this one right back here, my Gardener's Delight tomato, I don't know why I'm pointing, you can't really see, it's like a jungle in there. My Gardener's Delight tomato right here, the leaves got so big that it pulled the whole plant down and the whole thing kind of like fell over from the waist down. And you can see where it fell over, just because it was way too heavy with tomatoes. Now I'm not sure if that plant is going to survive it or not. I've kind of tied it back up to the stake. Everything's still like attached and there are a lot of tomatoes. I do know when you snap off the main stem of a tomato plant, as long as it's not like a seedling, it's fine. It grows back. You can just let a side shoot kind of replace the main stem and it will grow back. This is exactly what happened to my Sweet Million when I was tying it in. I accidentally snapped off the apical stem and a side shoot grew from it, and you can see it's all the way almost to the top. So it's fine, in case it's helpful for you. But so I know a side shoot will kind of like take its place on my Gardener's Delight tomato, but I don't know if that stem is gonna survive because it didn't snap all the way. It just kind of like bent. We'll see. But that's kind of given me a lesson for things to take for future. The string method just doesn't work for my tomatoes. They get too heavy, so they definitely need staking. And just be sure, for personal advice for myself, to remember to tie them in like frequently, because you'd be surprised how quickly these things grow. Like, I cannot believe how much these tomatoes have grown in the last month. Like, yeah, it's crazy. So they grow really fast. They need tying to those stakes really fast. So like, note to self, don't let it go too long, otherwise you'll have tomato casualties. Then in the front here of kind of my rock wall, I have these beautiful bread seed poppies. These are kind of the last of them. There's one over there. There's one more variety that I planted that I haven't seen yet, and it was one of the ones I was most excited about. It was like this lilac-y purple Dr. Seuss looking thing. They were the craziest looking flowers, and I didn't see any come up. So I'm hoping, there's one over there that looks like the bud is purplish. I'm hoping that it's just the last of the ones to grow. But oh, they were so glorious. It was like I said, poppies, some of my favorite flowers. It was more beautiful than I could have imagined. This one's just opening, but oh my gosh, they're just beautiful. These are called bread seed poppies. This one is a peony poppy, and just like all these ruffly petals, they're just gorgeous. But now they're being taken over. They're kind of on the way out, and they're going to be taken over by Cosmos and a single pollinator dahlia on the corner here. But as you can see, my peppers have exploded, with the exception of this Ahavarsky red pepper right here. It's got one pepper on it, but the plant is way smaller compared to the rest. I think because it was getting shaded out by the poppies that were growing here, and now that there's Cosmos, it may end up not doing so well, but I'll just leave it in there. I've got 9 pepper plants, so I don't think there's gonna be any shortage of peppers. And we've got some of my first ones ripening, including this cayenne pepper right here. Sorry, it's a leafy jungle, it's hard to see. Cayenne pepper, but oh my gosh, there are so many peppers on these plants. So many. The Peter pepper over there just cracks me up. And then last but not least of the produce, we have my slicing tomatoes. I don't know what it is. I think it could be because literally birds poop on these constantly. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe because it's next to the fence, so it gets shaded by the fence a little bit. It needs more sun than they're getting. But it produces lots of flowers and then no tomatoes. So I was thinking maybe they didn't have enough food. So I fed them with some fertilizer, organic fertilizer. And ever since then, I've had another, where's it? Where is it? Where is it? Up there. I've had 3 more tomatoes popped up since I fed it. So if your tomato plant is producing flowers and no tomatoes, fertilize it. I got that idea from listening to Gardener's Question Time, one of my favorite gardening podcasts. So I think that's gonna help it. I did feed it again today. So hopefully that trajectory of producing more tomatoes will continue. The slicers are not as tall as my cherry tomatoes are, but then again, these are in like the best spot. Oh look, got a pollinator friend. And then the back flower bed, which is just a mess, honestly. There's tons of snapdragons in here. That's what the majority of this is. But you can see them trying to like stretch toward the light. So I just don't think this bed gets enough sunlight for those snapdragons. But despite what these foxgloves are telling you now, because this one is almost done, foxgloves do okay in mixed light conditions. They can take some shade, and they really did super well over here and staying upright. So I have planted I've sowed a whole new set of seeds of just foxgloves. And once those are ready, I'm going to take out the snapdragons when they're finished and just replace this with all foxgloves in the back. And then next year I'll research plants that are better with part shade conditions. It makes me wonder, honestly, if these dahlias back here, this one is Cornell Bronze and this one is Blizzard, makes me wonder how they're really gonna do. I don't know. Just because, like I said, there's not a ton of sun over here. There's some, but not as much as I think that some of these need. Or maybe these just needed staking. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe snapdragons just need staking. But the foxgloves seem to really be able to hold their own and stay upright. Like I said, we've had tons of heavy rain lately, so this one's not really an indication that anything is really up. I think it's just all the rain that we've had. And another cosmos right there. Elderflowers are all gone now. My, they go so fast. I thought they were going to be there for a lot longer, but there are berries on there now. So now I can look up how to use the berries, but the elderflowers are done, as is my sweet pea trellis. It's time to probably rip this out. Maybe I could put some zinnias in here. I do find that I had a harder time keeping this watered because the rest of my system is hooked up to like this hose, soaker hose system throughout, which is so much easier to water than having to hand water this constantly. Got the sweet pea pods on there. That's the last one. These were so beautiful. We'll definitely sow sweet peas again next year. This is the amazing gray poppy, but it's so sunny out, I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see the nuance, but they are really pretty.